Yoane Wissa just made history, the first ever player to score for DR Congo in a FIFA World Cup. He will go home and be honoured like Cameroon honoured Roger Milla in 1990. On July 1st, 2021, someone threw acid on Yoane Wissa's face. He nearly lost his sight. On June 17, 2026, in Houston, Texas, he headed the ball into the back of the net, and an entire nation 10,000 kilometers away stopped breathing. For everyone watching, it was one header. For Wissa, it was 5 years of pain, surgery, fear, recovery, and refusal compressed into one movement towards the ball. And for DR Congo, it ended in silence that had lasted 52 years. Hi, I'm Cyrus Fernando with FNTG From Nothing to Glory, which finds a human side within the story. In 2021, Wissa was 24 and playing for Lorient. Brentford wanted him. A transfer to the Premier League was close. Then, on July 1st, he opened his door. A woman was outside. She had already tried to take Wissa's infant daughter. When Wissa confronted her, she threw corrosive liquid directly into his face. He screamed. He could not breathe. His wife called the emergency services. They told him to stand beneath the shower and keep washing his face while help came. At the hospital, doctors told him that both eyes had been burnt. Medical staff had to rinse them repeatedly. He underwent emergency surgery and later described the aftermath in court with one sentence: "It has been a nightmare." Wissa said sudden sounds could still make him panic. Sleep became difficult, safety no longer felt automatic, and still he never allowed that fear to define him. The physical damage was severe. He needed surgery on both eyes. He required months to recover his sight fully. Doctors could not immediately promise him that his vision would return as it had been. For a professional footballer, sight is not one ability among many. It is a distance itself, timing, balance, the flight of a cross, the movement of a defender at the edge of your vision, and the fraction of a second between arriving too early and arriving exactly when history needs you. Christophe Pellissier, Wissa's coach at Lorient, visited him in hospital the following day. He remembered a player who was physically and mentally damaged, but already showing the determination to succeed. Pierre-Yves Hamel, Wissa's former teammate, remembered something similar. After the attack, Wissa did not build his identity around complaint. He wanted to move forward. Courage is not the absence of fear. Wissa carried the trauma, rebuilt his sight, and returned to the work his body knew. 6 weeks after the attack, Brentford completed the transfer. He entered the Premier League with marks still visible around his eyes, and questions that no medical test could fully answer. Could he trust his vision under the floodlights? Could he challenge for headers? Could he stand inside a crowded penalty area while bodies moved around him? Could he become the player he had been preparing to become? Wissa answered slowly, training session by training session, match by match, goal by goal. He became one of Brentford's most reliable attackers, then moved to Newcastle United. He also became increasingly important for the country his parents came from. In January 2025, the woman responsible for the attack was sentenced to 18 years in prison for assaulting Wissa and attempting to kidnap his daughter. The verdict brought accountability, but football gave Wissa somewhere to move. DR Congo had its own before and after. The country's previous World Cup appearances came in 1974, when it competed as Zaire. That team became the first from sub-Saharan Africa to qualify for the tournament. But in West Germany, the achievement turned into humiliation. Zaire lost all 3 matches. They conceded 14 goals, they scored none. The image most people remembered was defender Mwepu Luga running from the wall and kicking Brazil's free kick away before it had been taken. It was replayed for decades as comedy. The circumstances behind it were darker. Political pressure, unpaid bonuses, threats, and players carrying burdens that television audiences could not see. Then Zaire disappeared from the World Cup. The nation changed its name. Generations passed. Children became parents. Parents became grandparents. And great players arrived and retired without ever wearing the shirt at football's largest tournament. DR Congo came close at times, but close does not appear in the record book. The wait continued until the qualification campaign for 2026. They defeated Cameroon. They faced Nigeria in the African playoff final, survived extra time, and won on penalties. That victory only earned another test. In Guadalajara, they faced Jamaica for one final place at the World Cup. 90 minutes passed without a goal. The match entered extra time. Then in the 100th minute, Axel Tuanzembe forced the ball home from a corner. The goal survived a review. DR Congo survived 52 years. When qualification was confirmed, Kinshasa erupted. People climbed onto cars. Flags moved above crowds. Streets became rivers of blue, red and yellow. But even qualification does not make the journey simple. Before entering the United States, the squad was instructed to maintain a 21-day isolation bubble because of restrictions connected to an Ebola outbreak. They had earned their place on the field, yet still faced the possibility that border rules could stop them from reaching it. So they prepared in Europe. They waited, then they came anyway. June 17, 2026, Houston. Portugal against DR Congo. On one side stood Cristiano Ronaldo and his squad expected to challenge for the trophy. On the other side stood a country playing its first World Cup match since 1974. 6 minutes in, João Neves headed Portugal ahead. The obvious story had begun. The giant scores early. The underdog retreats. The famous number 7 waits for his moment. The returning nation learns how unforgiving the World Cup can be. But DR Congo did not just collapse. They stayed compact. They challenged. They waited for their moment. The clock moved beyond 45 minutes. A corner came from the left. It was played short. Arthur Masuaku received the ball and shaped to cross. Inside the penalty area, Portuguese shirts watched the delivery. Wissa waited behind them. Then he moved. Masuaku's cross travelled beyond the first line. Wissa rose, met it with his head, and drove the ball into the net. For an instant, the stadium had to understand what had just happened. Then Wissa ran. His teammates chased him. The blue shirts gathered, and thousands of kilometers away, Kinshasa exploded. People jumped inside bars and living rooms. Crowds poured into the streets. Strangers grabbed the strangers. Phones lifted into the air, trying to preserve a moment that had already belonged to everyone. It was DR Congo's first goal at the World Cup. Not its first in 52 years, its first ever. The team known as Zaire had left 1974 without scoring. Every Congolese World Cup minute before Wissa's header had ended without the ball crossing the opposition line. Then the man who had once been told his eyes were burned saw the cross. He judged its flight. He found the space behind a defender. He arrived at exactly the right moment. 5 years earlier, Wissa stood beneath a shower trying to save his sight. Now he watched the net move in Houston. The match finished 1-1. DR Congo had its first World Cup goal and its first World Cup point. Portugal had more possession, more famous players, and the man almost everyone had come to see. But the moment belonged to Wissa. A football goal lasts only seconds. The ball leaves a foot, changes direction, crosses a line, and the scoreboard changes. But some goals carry far more time than that. Wissa's header carried the hospital room, the surgery, the water running over damaged eyes, the nights when a noise could trigger panic, the 6 months required for his sight to return fully. Everyone who visited him, trained with him, trusted him, and watched him choose the movement over surrender. It also carried 1974, the losses, the ridicule, the generations that never saw their country return. The penalty shootout against Nigeria, Tuanzembe's 100th minute goal against Jamaica, the isolation order, the waiting, the flight to America, and finally, one cross in the first half stoppage time. He opened his door in 2021, and someone tried to take everything from him. He scored in the 45th minute in 2026 and gave something back to every person in the Democratic Republic of Congo who watched a corner kick become the most important header in their nation's football history. If this story has moved you, if Yoane Wissa's journey from an acid attack in 2021 to a World Cup header in Houston in 2026 hit you the way it hit me, I wrote the complete version. It's every detail, the hospital, the surgery, the 52-year wait, and the night Kinshasa stopped. It's called DR Congo, Amidst Pain and War, part of my From Nothing to Glory series covering every underdog at FIFA 2026. The link is in the description. This is one worth reading. And if you want to understand how DR Congo created that moment, their defensive plan contained Ronaldo, frustrated Portugal, and turned a prepared set piece into history, watch the FTG Intel breakdown. You can click it on your screen right now. Subscribe for more stories of teams, players, and nations that reached the World Cup from almost nothing. I'm Cyrus Fernando, this is FNTG, From Nothing to Glory, and I'll see you soon.